at any point over however long it's been, 10, 15 years, whatever, where it's been in the mainstream, have any of you guys ever invested in any sort of cryptocurrency, Bitcoin or the like, Dogecoin or...
I missed the boat on that,
the
so to speak.
Dogecoin, I forgot about that.
Yeah. Oh, Dogecoin is
Isn't that's Elon, right?
That's...
Or I know he's grafted onto it, but
now it is. Now it is.
Yeah, I immediately associated it with him because he always was posting like crap like that on Twitter, and then when he bought it, X. So I thought that was him, but maybe I'm mistaken on that.
For me, and I with my investments that are more traditional, I do play them fast and loose because I'm young and far away from when they matter to me. When I first heard about Bitcoin, and it was not immediate, but like fairly early on compared to a lot of people, I still felt like I was too late to the party.
Yeah.
It's one of those things when you're dealing with a highly volatile commodity. It's like, for example, when it was new, if you bought it then, and I was just having this conversation with our dear friend, Steve, the bartender.
Yes.
And he was pontificating about, if I had just bought this then. Well, if,
you did it, so don't worry about it.
It's a hyper volatile commodity. I will describe it as a commodity. I don't think that it really deserves that, but that's me being a curmudgeon. The bottom line is that if you treat it in this way, what you're always taking on is a hyperinflated risk for a hyperinflated reward. And is that what you want to do? So for myself, to answer your question, I personally never invested directly in crypto. Instead, what I did is I invested in banks that I trusted to invest in crypto when they thought that it was logical.
Yeah.
Now, mind you, I am a devout Marxist, and so therefore I'm also a hypocrite.
Yeah. But then again, with the idea of being a devout Marxist, you would believe more in a centralized thing, which banks are, whereas cryptocurrency is apparently more decentralized. Well, me and my libertarian values would appreciate that more.
You could argue that in two different directions, different conversation, Dan. Yes. Marxism is not necessarily about centralization, but we'll circle back to that one. I would say that with that, it's really what it really comes back to is that the way in which we approach cryptocurrency, it's not inherently decentralized.
Yes.
Because ultimately, I mean, like if we live in, I'll give my own judgment here. If we live in a fantasy world, then yes, it's decentralized. Yeah. But I personally would like to think that I don't. And I think that governments very much so have a hand in all of the ways in which we trade money. So therefore, I think that crypto is just another way of exchanging funds. It is not the American dollar. Certainly that's true. Yeah. But it's ultimately, it doesn't escape you from what's overall happening, the way in which the government intrudes into our individual money.
Governments are, in fact, trying to get in on it, too. Have you guys heard of central bank, what is it called? Digital
Basically
currency?
Digital.
Yeah, that's what it's called.
Yeah, exactly.
And so they were pushing that hard in, I think it was England. A couple years ago.
So,
yeah.
Yes.
And then one of the executive orders when we let off the show with from Trump is that those are now banned in the United States.
Yeah.
So there is
it's because he's pushing his
but it's that is a part of it, but also at the same time it leads to this little weird kind of like dichotomy that you have where it's like, all right, the government wants to be involved in crypto, but is actively now in the time now that Trump is president, who's to say what happens when somebody else takes over. Government is going to be involved in crypto, but not essentially leading the charge with these CBDCs.
Yeah.
Government will never lead the charge.
Yeah.
It's very, because it's, I mean, for all its risk and everything, you cannot ignore it. I know plenty of people that definitely made a lot of money off of it. Mm-hmm. My brother made a lot of money off of it. And like, he was telling me about it. He's like, oh, you should check this shit out, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, it was too much for me.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I think it's past where I would have wanted to have gotten into this thing. And it's just was not for me. And he hung on to it. And I think he did a decent enough job of dismounting at a decent time.
Yeah.
He made his chunk of change. And then instead of just perpetually letting it ride, he's like, I'm getting out of this now.
Take your winnings.
Yeah.
But you never, and that's one of those things where it's like, it's so speculative.
It is.
So it's just a different form of stock.
Well, yes, yeah. Well, ultimately, it's a different type of risk.
Yes.
That's really what it is. So the stock market is a type of risk. You're investing in something about its future, and you don't know.
Yeah.
You really don't know. And anybody anywhere.
So is it just based on the personality, who's behind it?
Well, no.
Since there's never
it's
like,
based
is there
off
any
of-
legitimate like
So
Bitcoin?
if
Well,
you-
more so in the era of meme coin now, where anybody can just start up
Well,
a coin.
yeah.
But like,
Yeah, which makes it seem like kind of silly.
Well, let me frame it for you differently, though. It's that, would you invest in Walmart about how they're going to do next year?
mm,
I know
Well,
that
but,
you
like-
personally wouldn't. That's not your thing. But you get what I'm saying.
No, but I
that-
can I have a judgment on that. It's not like what is Bitcoin based off of?
What is Walmart based off of?
Well, of what they're selling and like how their business is running.
It's based off of ultimately how you imagine that next year will look, 2026 will look, which exists only in your mind. It's completely fictitious. It doesn't exist.
Well, that's the same as reality.
Right.
It's all fictitious. It's just
Yeah.
how I perceive it.
I love that you do a shot as you do that. Really bringing it back to Loud and Drunk. I'm way about it.
Oh,
I'm loving my whiskey right now. My point about it is that no matter how you want to slice it, it's that you're trying to, if you're the investor and you're trying to figure out, like, I got $100 and I want to put it somewhere, and it could either
Where
be
I
in
could
Bitcoin
maybe make
or Trump coin,
$200.
or it could be in Walmart stock, right? You're trying to predict the future and you have no idea. So you're just basing it off of your speculation. And your speculation, if you're like everybody else who's ever preceded you for, 100 years, you're going to be wrong at least half the time. So the way that I approach that is that me personally, I like to have lower risk. So I'm more about the Walmart because they do have the stores. They do have things.
there's something tangible there.
There's something tangible.
Like where
there.
Bitcoin, there's nothing tangible. It's just
Right.
an idea.
And yet
That's what we're putting money
and
in.
yet that's the place
In
for the
an
greatest growth.
idea.
Yeah, because they also have no overhead.
right.
So you could stand to gain the most money from there. And that's why you'll also find more investors willing to put money into the Bitcoin because they're looking at Walmart and they're like, man, you got a lot of rent to pay.
Yeah.
And they look at Bitcoin and they're like, wow, you have no rent to pay because you're nothing, but you're going to go up.
Now,
Yeah.
also on the flip side with Bitcoin is one person of any sort of note can just say something,
Yeah.
and it can
It just fluctuate and
Yeah.
people will dump fear. It is incredibly volatile.
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess we just need better vices.
Well, no, it's just manipulation of the market.
Yeah.
It's really that simple. So like an Elon Musk is very easily able to sculpt the market in certain ways. And that's what he does, and everybody who's able to do so, engage in that.
Yeah.
They all engage in that. Because why wouldn't you? If I had $1 billion, then why wouldn't I just buy a bunch of Bitcoin and then go on to fucking, X and just be like, yeah, I just bought a bunch of Bitcoin. And all of a sudden it shoots up. And I'm like,
Yeah.
sold. That's the nature of what it is. And it's not to say that it's inherently, flawed in some way, though I think that everything's inherently flawed. But the bottom line is that how does it separate itself from the other existing systems that we have?
Well, yeah,
And-
it doesn't seem very different at all.
It
It's
seems very
just
similar
new.
to me,
It's
yeah.
just new.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
you're just putting lipstick on a pig.
Yeah. It's a very similar system.
Yeah.
It's
it's very
new
simple.
and it's exciting. And when things are like that, people want to be the ones that ride that first wave into fucking glory. You know what I mean?
It's like a FOMO thing. They don't want to miss out. So
I'm crushing this thing, which is the rest of our stuff has been around forever. Standard
Yeah.
ways of investing in markets and all this stuff like that. When Bitcoin came on, it was the new kid on the block. And it's like, people are like, I am going to crush this. And in ways you could. But now it's integrated into big government, new president, Trump coin, Melania coin.
do those
Isn't
compete?
that glorious?
Yeah.
Do they compete? Like what is the Melania coin worth compared to the Trump coin?
Much less.
Like is it much less?
Yes.
I don't know. Because it would be fun. I just think it would
I
be
saw
funny if
numbers
it
this morning, I
skyrocketed
can't-
and his
I
kind
cannot
of dwindled.
Repeat them to you, but they were,
I
Worlds
don't care.
Yeah.
Huh.
I believe that.
and they both took a massive dive.
Well,
Yeah.
My point about
as
it would
anything
be-
that's not real.
my opinion about just general crypto, like today, and I mean this very seriously, I still don't invest in it.
I don't either. I don't either.
I think that it's like it's not that it's not going to go up. Like if you invested in these things, like God bless, you know.
And here's the truth thing. From my point, I know I could, and I would feel fairly safe on my spectrum of where I feel safe to like come in, do a run, and then like in and out strategy is what I
Dip
would
your
do.
toe in, see what it's
I wouldn't
about
be
and
all
how
in.
it goes, but
Yeah.
and then get it right out.
All in strategy, but like take cuts,
Like 30 minutes at a table. Like, let's see how the cards lie.
In a way, what I would do is I would come in with X amount, have X goal, that I would do a pull and do a reinvest.
Yeah,
that's how I would do.
and like and
Or
when
not
it-
reinvest
when
at all
was
if it
new,
went terribly.
Depending.
When Bitcoin was like the only fucking kid on the block,
Yeah.
I literally, like many people told me to invest in it, and I didn't. And
Yeah.
obviously, had I listened to those people,
Yeah.
I would be very wealthy today.
Yeah.
And that's a thing that I didn't do. I obviously would love to be very wealthy, but I stand by that the risk reward ratio of it was still outside of my framework. You know,
I didn't
it's just
understand
not
it
how
well
I think
enough.
about it. you
And
know?
I'm like,
I'm not
Because it
trying to
doesn't
get
make
rich
sense. There's no way to wrap your head around it. It doesn't, like, everything you got, like, granted, maybe you guys don't, you self-proclaim that you don't know everything about it, but
absolutely not. Yeah.
like what you're saying to me, and I know nothing about it, like, it doesn't seem like I get why you would do it, because sometimes you get bored. But
Well, no, it's about the way in which, if you follow groupthink, I mean, it's the way in which if everybody thinks that a thing is going to double in value,
yeah,
then you should
Then it does.
absolutely invest in that. Yeah. In other words, like I was, and I'll own this, like I looked at that and I was like, I'm not going to buy that because I don't know anything about it. So I'm not going to do that. And it seems stupid to me. I didn't do that. And all the people who did that, they obviously, like, if they held on to it, which most people did not, but like if they held on to it, then they would have gained a lot of money from that.
are
right?
there people that can explain Bitcoin, or is it just always talking in circles?
There are people.
That's a fair question.
I mean, there's probably people like crypto bros that like will explain something to you.
That's a good.
There's
That's-
people that literally study this shit. I was
Yeah.
listening to a podcast about it on the way to the studio where the guy studied it and freaking wrote a paper in like 2018, like called the Bitcoin standard, like
Sure.
the gold standard and all that
Okay.
stuff. And I was just like, I was listening to it. I had to shut it off. Like after 20 minutes, it's like, listen, man, not only are you not explaining this in a way that I can understand, but I've just completely checked out.
The simplest way that I could describe it is that what we want to buy and own exists only within your mind.
Well, that's her.
Yeah, it doesn't. So in other words, like, why do
Perception
people buy
is
Bitcoin?
reality. We're just getting down to that.
Kind of, yeah. It's like this is one of those moments where we actually agree with each other. The bottom line is that
Cute.
the reason that people buy things.
I'm mad at social.
Why do you accept when somebody hands you dollars? Why do you accept them? It's
Because-
just pieces of paper.
Yeah, but those are valuable. Anything
How?
else?
How? Explain to me how
Well, they
they're
represent value.
Yeah, I could buy a
Yeah.
pack of smokes with those.
right.
That's how I get smokes.
Okay,
That's how they're valuable to me.
So then,
Those are smoke.
yeah.
Those are smoke sheets, and you will address them as
Smoke
So
such.
they represent what you could get for them, right?
Yeah.
Right. So
But they
If I
have
was
no
to-
intrinsic value to it. Ever since we took it off the gold
If-
standard,
if
it
I-
has
if
no
I
actual
was to
value.
offer
I mean, even
you-
if it's on the gold
I was
standard,
to
it still
offer you
has no
Bitcoin,
intrinsic value.
If
to
I
me.
was to offer you Bitcoin and say, listen, give me one pack of cigarettes right now, right? One pack of smokes, and I will give you one Bitcoin.
This is the
And
wimpy
then
theory.
Let me do it. Let me do it.
Yeah, I know.
and then-
two cheeseburgers on Tuesday.
And then
Got it.
tomorrow, you'll be able to buy two
Yeah.
packs. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I know this.
But tomorrow you actually are able to do that.
Then I guess fine.
Yeah. That's
Like,
what
you
it
know
is.
what? Sign me up.
That's what
Yeah, but I need.
And that's what
I need some collateral on the first bid.
But you don't need collateral when I hand you $1, because when I hand you $1, or I hand you $10, and I'm like, let me get one of those cigarettes.
Well,
right?
a dollar is different than a Bitcoin because I
It
don't
isn't.
trust a Bitcoin. I have half
Why do you
trust.
trust a dollar?
I have half trust because I grew up with it.
So it's entirely arbitrary.
Oh,
Exposure.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
My point
isn't
is
that what
that-
we're doing?
My point is that whether I hand you the Bitcoin or I hand you the dollar, the bottom line is that when I hand you the dollar, you think internally, whether it's conscious or not, that you'll be able to use this arbitrary piece of paper to go and
that it
replace.
has-
But I
and
have
it
facts
has
behind that because I have done that in the past.
Yes, it's exposure.
Yeah,
You have
I don't have a
value
physical
bias.
Bitcoin. I mean, I get you could buy them,
but it's entirely
like you
arbitrary.
don't have. Like, so
It's
I need
entirely
tangibility.
Well, you might, but you understand the point that I'm getting at.
I get
Why,
it. But
why do you need the tangibility? How often do you buy cigarettes with a credit card or a debit card of some kind, never actually handing over the actual paper money to
Rarely,
the cashier?
actually, rarely.
Rarely? You
Yeah.
always pay with cash?
I pay with cash
I mean,
for
good
most
for
of my
you.
shit. Well, at least the small item.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I pay for cash for booze and cigarettes, kind of, and I try to do it with going out to dinner.
Good for you.
I
You're doing
can't,
a
I
lot
can't
of-
speak to him actually doing that.
Well, I'd never get the goddamn chance.
Well,
I'm
my
talking
wife-
to you, Christina. Talking to you.
Oh, I'm straight down the barrel of the
Wow.
camera.
So
Shots fired.
She knows what she did.